morning and welcome to Beyond the Contracts podcast. I'm your host, Marisa Morrow.
And I'm your co-host, Madison Roden.
And today we are on true location. We are outside of Just Love at the Fountains. So shout out to them. It's a fantastic scene that we've got going on. The landscaping is gorgeous, but even more gorgeous is our guest today, Ericka Downing. She is with the Domestic Violence Center, and I don't really know where to start. Tell us how long you've been with the Domestic Violence Center and your background.
Okay, so I have been the executive director of the Domestic Violence Sexual Assault Center since December of 2019. Prior to that, I was a sexual assault volunteer with the agency and just really kind of fell in love with the mission and the vision and was ready to make a career change. I'd worked in probation for 19 years and really didn't feel like I was making an impact with what I was doing, and I really just felt like something was missing, and I just kept getting kind of pulled into this agency. And I had a friend at the time that was the assistant director, and she was like, hey, I know you're looking to switch careers. Our executive director position is open. Put in for it. Don't put in for it. It's completely up to you. So I prayed about it and thought, okay, this could be my opportunity. So I put in for it. All the doors opened and I walked through it, and then I got it and was like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into?
What do I do?
Because running a nonprofit is a huge undertaking. Now I did ask for a challenge, and I got that in tenfolds, but I loved every single minute of it. Just trying to dig in, learn the organization from the ground up. And just really learning how to support survivors in a way that I had not been able to in my prior career.
So walk us through, you get a call at midnight. Somebody's in crisis mode. What does the center and you specifically do to help them? How do you navigate that?
So it always depends on what kind of crisis they're experiencing. So we have 2 crisis lines, one's for domestic violence and one's for sexual assault. So typically those that are calling into our domestic violence crisis line, or they're looking for shelter services, so they're transferred to a shelter advocate for an intake, and to try to figure out what's going on and see if we have placement. And we would go in, whether it's midnight or 3 o'clock in the morning, we go in and do that intake so that survivor is immediately safe at our shelter.
Wow.
Sometimes we get phone calls through our DV crisis line about those that are asking about filing an order of protection. So I filled all of those calls and kind of answer those general questions, and then they would come in the next day to talk to an advocate about filing an order of protection. So we help individuals file orders of protection in Rutherford County and in Cannon County as of November of last year. That's kind of new territory for us over the last year and a half. And so from start to finish, we help someone file the petition. We send it in the courts for approval or denial, but we walk them through the process that involves safety planning, danger assessments, and really trying to figure out what is going on and why they're in immediate fear, threat, or harm of the individual. When they do go to court on that order of protection, we have attorneys that represent them at no cost. And so when you're in court, it's a very scary experience as it is. And so to have advocates and attorneys in court with you kind of helps alleviate some of that anxiety. But they do have to be in court with their abuser. And so we just want to try to make things as comfortable and as safe as we possibly can during that setting. If someone calls in for our sexual assault crisis line, they are typically in crisis. Either a sexual assault just happened, or they're been triggered by some event that happened in their past and they're reliving it in the moment. So they're actually talking to some of our counselors or our trained volunteers to kind of help de-escalate the situation, kind of stabilize the situation, and get them connected to our counseling services as well. Also, another part of the sexual assault crisis line is that we provide hospital accompaniments for individuals that have experienced a sexual assault. So they're reporting either to our office to have that exam completed by a nurse that's trained to collect that evidence, or they're reporting to Ascension St. Thomas Rutherford for that exam. And so if someone presents at either location, an advocate is called to be present during that exam. So we're supporting that survivor during that exam. We're not interfering in medical, we're not interfering in law enforcement in that respect, but we're there to support the survivor in that moment. Those exams are very intensive.
I can only imagine.
Very traumatizing. So we're there in that moment to help support them, answer questions, take a pause with them when they need to, but really just putting ourselves in their shoes of like how we would want to be supported and treated. We want to make sure that we're doing that for our survivors as well. And that was part of the piece that I actually came in as a sexual assault volunteer. I remember going through the training and just being terrified that I was going to say the wrong thing.
Right. Yeah.
And the lady that was doing the training, she was like, I promise you, you cannot say anything wrong. And I'm like, oh, challenge accepted. Like, I feel like I can put my foot in my mouth at any given moment. But what she really meant was if you're there for the right reasons and you're there to support the survivor, you can't say the wrong thing. You can always find a way to connect with someone on a different level in that space of where they're experiencing trauma, and you're standing toe-to-toe with them as they're going through that experience. So, you know, I think the beauty of what we do is that we're able to show someone how strong they are and things that they forget about themselves. We can bring that to the surface of like things that they were told that it was their fault or you know, they shouldn't have been in that location, they shouldn't have been drinking, like all those things, all those like self-doubt and blaming and shaming that our clients do. We're able to flip that mirror around and go, I know that's what you think, I know that's what you've been told, but that's not the reality. And this is who you truly are. And we really want to make sure that we're empowering our survivors to make their own decisions and to help support them as best as we can. You know, walking alongside them during their experiences and not taking them on as our own, but supporting them in the best way that we know how.
I think on that same token of like self-doubt and everything, what are y'all doing to kind of combat the people who feel like they can't reach out? Because I know that's a huge problem. Like, how are we making it, you know, approachable?
I think as a community, continuing to talk about the issues surrounding domestic violence and sexual assault, you know, as a community, when we don't talk about those issues, that violence thrives in silence. And as a community, as we're making it more approachable for clients to come forward, that we're providing them that support, I think as much as outreach and awareness that my agency can provide, when someone experiences either domestic violence or sexual assault, they know where to go. Because that's the worst thing that someone can do is suffer in silence and not know that there's help out there and not to make those connections. So, you know, we have really good relationships with law enforcement, with health care providers, with other nonprofit organizations. So they know where to send clients and survivors when those things occur. You know, law enforcement, I will say Murfreesboro Police Department is probably in my office every single day, that they are bringing clients in for either an order of protection, emergency shelter, or, you know, for an exam. And they're really getting the word out that we're available. We're a resource to them all the time. Same thing with Rutherford County Sheriff's Department. They do an amazing job, those departments do, of making sure that victims and survivors are being referred to us, because they know that we are a resource for them, so they can focus on their task at hand, and we can focus on the advocacy and support and that emotional piece that may not be kind of their lane of traffic, so to speak, but we can take that burden off of them and support them, as well as they're seeing several things while they're out on patrol and out in the community, and so they know that we're a resource that they can depend on.
I mean, and I guess you would have to have those good working relationships, because
that is vital. Especially the criminal justice system as well. Our district attorney does a phenomenal job with his team of making sure that our survivors feel supported in court, that they are fully explained of what's going on. Legal jargon is very confusing for anyone.
Well, and when you're in trauma, it's hard to absorb and really kind of understand like what's going on. And when you're in trauma, you cannot think in a logical way. That's just not how your brain is set up. And so it's really kind of hard to retain some of that information, which is why a lot of the things that after we have interactions, we follow up with a lot of things in writing. So it's something they can refer to, because it's no offense to us, they're just not able to retain it in that state of trauma. But we want to make sure that they know and have that information. They may never look at it, but they know that it's there. But if they need it, it's there.
It's there as a resource. And just really working, you know, collaborative with other agencies when we have survivors that have other needs that are outside the scope of what we do. We're not going to be that one-size-fits-all approach. And so we want to make sure that we can make those connections to other agencies as well, to make sure that they get the best care that they need and that they deserve, and that they feel like well-rounded and supported, and being very victim-centered and trauma-informed, so that they don't feel re-traumatized.
Right.
After they disclose, or they don't feel that judgment, that shame, that heaviness that comes with those disclosures, because when a survivor comes in our office, they're pretty much telling a perfect stranger everything they've just experienced.
Right.
And so it's really important of how you support someone when they disclose. You know, are you sitting and actively listening and supporting them and saying, hey, thank you for telling me that. You know, how can I best support you? How can we walk alongside this together?
Right.
And making sure that they're in control of the situation, because a lot of the times, all of these situations, they're not in control of.
Right.
And so it's very important to be able to give their power and control back in those situations, because that is the most important thing that was taken from them. Everything else you can kind of unpack and kind of work through, but really kind of rebuilding from the inside and just reminding them who they truly are. And unfortunately, you know, there are going to be people that are going to blame them for what they've been through. And again, that's why it's important for us as advocates to remind them to shut out that noise and really focus on it's not their fault.
Well, and unfortunately, that usually comes from a direct family member, their best friends, and that's with a lot of, we're in a society that judges every little thing. So
that's why we need to speak out as a community and bring light to this.
Absolutely. And I know that you also deal with more than just the people that are coming in. I know you just spoke with elder abuse.
Yes. We had an organization reach out to us in Smyrna that they wanted us to talk to their elderly population about elder abuse and kind of signs to look for and things like that. And, you know, abuse doesn't discriminate with age, sex, or anything like that. And so to be able to get that information out there and answer those questions of, like, what do you do if you suspect elder abuse? Like, who do you call? How do you navigate that?
And I know with elder, you know, my parents were, you know, have passed recently, and it's very much so. There might be other health issues with them that they don't even recognize that they're truly being abused. And that could be anywhere from, you know, we had somebody, a family member, that spoke so rough to them. And it was like, wait a minute, you know, they mean well sometimes. But they also need to recognize, hey, this is not normal. This is not the norm.
Yes. You know, and also, they're taking advantage of the most vulnerable moments.
Right.
And a lot of it, when it comes to elder abuse, comes more financial abuse as well, is that they have, you know, talked to someone giving them $20,000, or they're trying to kind of, like, you know, figure out how to get money from this individual, and take, you know, and taking advantage of.
And there's whole organizations out there that do that, and that's, you know, crazy.
You know, and it's just really sad that is the state of where we are in a society, is that we're taking advantage of our most vulnerable.
Right.
It is sad, but we need people like you and organizations.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we had talked about the elder abuse portion of this too. Like, there's no rule book on how to handle this, and we don't know the norm, because this is our first time in life we're going through this firsthand. So having somebody to tell us and set the path for us, it's not okay.
I think it's just really important to, like, recognize, like, signs of abuse and understand the dynamics of everything. And I think it's important that sometimes, like, what we view as normal is not really normal, and sometimes that's modeled after how we were raised. So if I was raised in an abusive household, then that's going to be kind of my mirror of what a relationship is.
Right. That's your normal.
And that's your normal, but you may not know that that's not a normal
typical
situation.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so, you know, that's a lot of what we work through with some of our survivors, is that they've grown up in it. So that's what they know, but it's not normal. And so it's actually being able to show someone, okay, but these behaviors this is abuse. This is not normal. This is not a healthy relationship. And I think as a society, we don't do the best job of talking about what a healthy relationship is.
No, you've got social media right in your face.
That's right. That's fake. That's all fake.
You know, and all these personas of, like, you know, what you should be and what you you know, what you should look for and all those things. And when you don't have a strong support system to help you navigate some of those things, you fall into situations that you never expected to be in.
Right.
You know, no one walks into a relationship and go, okay, this is going to end horribly, and this is going to be like a fiery disaster of a domestic violence situation. Like nobody walks into that. But it's also hard as you are establishing a relationship with someone and it does become violent, or kind of there's some red flags that someone's very possessive or controlling, looking at your phone, asking you where you've been, following you around, you know, trying to isolate you from your friends and family. It starts out very slow and escalates.
Yeah.
But sometimes those patterns are hard to break because there was a part of that relationship that you really loved that person, and you're hoping that they're going to go back, and you're wondering, like, what did I do to contribute to this? And the fact is, you didn't do anything to contribute to it. That is mostly, and I will speak on behalf of women, we blame ourselves for a lot of things that we feel like it's our fault, like we did something. And it's the abuser's behavior, it's the perpetrator's behavior, and holding them accountable and not blaming ourselves for something.
Well, and usually the abusers are very good at manipulation, and they're very good at making that person be like, oh, well, I talked to that person, or I texted that person, even though it was whatever. Then all of a sudden, that's your normal. You know, it eases in, and so you may not even recognize it until
like someone else points it out to you. You know, I think about most of the abusers. When I worked in probation, there were a couple of characteristics that I always felt like I could like pinpoint on every single abuser that I worked with. They were charismatic. They felt like they were charming. They were either sociopaths or psychopaths, but they believed everything that they were saying. And it was always somebody else's fault, but
they're never wrong.
Like gaslighting the victim about, okay, well, you made me this way. You know, you did this, and so this is why I acted in that way. And really just kind of flipping the whole world upside down of blaming the victim for what they're doing to them.
Right.
And, you know, one of the most powerful things that we can use is the power and control wheel, because when you're in a situation, you feel like you're the only person that happens to. But the power and control wheel talks about all of different dynamics and different tactics that abusers use. And you can typically set that wheel in front of somebody and they can point out everything they've experienced. And then that realization hits of like, I'm not the only person that's experienced this. Like somebody
there's a whole thing. Right.
And I've done this, and this. And it's the most powerful tool, because sometimes when you see something in black and white, you can no longer ignore it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Some of that kind of denial kind of goes away. And then sometimes that's when we got to do some additional crisis intervention, because that realization is hitting them of like, oh my gosh, I'm really in the middle of a domestic violence situation. Like I didn't realize that, and now the reality is hitting me. Or they may minimize like what they've been through. So we may have a survivor that discloses their story, and then they say, well, I'm sure you've heard worse. Well, he doesn't hit me, he just yells at me.
Okay.
And so they minimize the behavior because that's what they've kind of been taught to do.
Right.
And it's like, no, any amount of abuse is wrong. It doesn't matter if it's verbal, psychological, if it's physical, you know, financial, all of those things factor in. Like that's all abuse. And it's all in statute that is abuse. But, you know, I think sometimes when people think about violence, they think about physical. So it's like if I can see a bruise, okay, I think something is going on. But honestly, some of the psychological and verbal abuse
is just as bad.
Yeah.
Well, that's stuff that just stays with you.
Yeah.
And you internalize it, and you keep talking about it and it doesn't feel like there's any escape from it.
Right.
And when you've been isolated from your friends and family, you may not have any way out. Or you may have disclosed to a close family member and they've said, well, why don't you just leave? You know, you push his buttons. Like it's your fault.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that closes somebody down from actually seeking help, because if their close friends, family members, support systems don't support them, how do you expect them to come to us as advocates or even to law enforcement and disclose what's going on?
There's no way.
They've been told by their abuser that you're not going to be believed anyway.
Right.
And so all you're doing is like playing into all those fears that they already have, and you're not giving them that way out.
Right.
And
So
supporting them.
we're here to say there's a way out.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We're calling the crisis center.
Yes.
I think we could do a whole segment on red flags with Ericka.
Oh, I mean, it would be lengthy.
It would be.
Well, look at my husband loves to watch like Dateline and all that, and I'm like, I can only take so much murder.
Red flag.
But when you flip through that channel, there is so many channels with multiple stories
about
there's a reason that all those are out. Those are the ones that have come out and have made stories. That is not a fraction of what is actually going on behind closed doors.
Yeah. Well, and then Netflix documentary Maternal Instinct that just came out. Have you checked that out?
No, but I will.
Girl, that's insane.
Can we also talk about the fact that it can go both ways? I mean, it could be a male.
Yes, she was definitely that.
You know, you never know who is a victim and who is an abuser, and a male and female can be both. It can be interchangeable sometimes. And so it's important for us not to label it's just a man, or it's just it's just a man that can be an abuser, or it's just a female that can be a victim, because it can go both ways. Right. And we have to create an environment where it's okay for both sexes to come forward.
Yeah, and that's a very steep hill, I'm sure, to
absolutely
get, because
it's really hard. Like, I know a lot of our male survivors feel really uncomfortable with like coming forward and even like talking to a male police officer. They're wondering if the officer is like questioning like their manhood, or their masculinity,
that ego,
and things like that, or looking at the size of the male versus the size of a female and going, well, I know you can't imagine that she's beating me up, but she is, and I realize I should be able to take care of myself, but all violence is wrong. But it's I think it's all those like preconceived notions and all those stigmas that we have. You're gonna have to check those at the door, because you never know when someone is going to experience domestic violence. You've got 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men in their lifetime that experience domestic violence. You look at statistics of how long it takes on average for someone to leave a domestic violence relationship. That's 7 times, and each time that cycle of violence escalates and gets and more intense and more violent, and that's typically what results into a domestic homicide. A lot of the calls at Murfreesboro Police Department go on, especially as the warmer months hit, are domestic violence calls. They're going from one call to the next. So it is happening in Murfreesboro, but there are resources out there in order to combat that as well.
So, being a nonprofit, your biggest fundraiser is a luncheon called Show Your Till, and it is always very successful. There is tears and laughter during this luncheon because you have the best guests, and they've been there. They know what it feels like to be in that. Explain where you get the name from, because that's a little bit different. Show Your Till.
So for the month of April, it's Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and so the color for the month is teal. And so my play on words was teal, like a cash register. So, and also teal, you're cultivating relationships. And so that was kind of my revamp of a prior event that we used, kind of just a kind of a play on words, and just we want to try to make the luncheon very upbeat, because we recognize that we're talking about some really heavy subjects, but we also know that it's important to talk about it. So we kind of have to take you on a little roller coaster ride of emotions. But most people feel very uplifted after they leave the luncheon.
Absolutely.
And they're equipped with information that maybe they didn't have before. And maybe so if one of their friends or their family member that they come across discloses, like, they know where to go and they know what to say, and they don't have to have all the answers. They can just go, hey, there's this organization called Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Center. Give them a call. You'll be able to talk to an advocate. We can unpack what's going on and make sure that you get the resources that you need. Even if it's just, I just need to talk to somebody and I'm not ready yet. That's okay too. You can dip your toe in the water and figure out, like, am I ready? Because maybe it's not that time. Right. And somebody has to be ready when they are going through that relationship. we cannot make anyone leave, make any decisions. If we try to do that, we are no better than the abusers they're trying to get away from. And so we have to really be careful about how we interact and make sure that we are providing a safe place for those disclosures. If someone doesn't feel comfortable with the process, we're doing something wrong. Because we should be the safest place for someone to go to in order to disclose everything that they've gone through, and listen to them, being intentional and really focusing on what they need in that moment.
Right.
And then also after a disclosure, that my staff is taking care of themselves because of what they're hearing on a regular basis.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine that's how heavy that is.
Yeah. And the restraint you have to take to be like, girl, get away from him. Guy, get away from him.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I will, you can come, I don't
Yeah, that would,
it's one of those things like you could be screaming on the inside. Like, this is really the action that you need to take.
Right.
But
they have to do it.
They have to do it. And we want to empower them to do that. But there are moments where you are really internally struggling with yourself of like, you want to say so much that you know that it is not the time or the place, and they're not ready to hear it.
Yeah. I can only imagine how difficult it would be. I know for me it would be difficult if somebody had showed up or reached out or gotten in touch with however and then went back. And you know what I mean? I would be like,
And the statistic, what, 7 times?
7 times. Yeah.
So that's inevitable.
Yeah.
Let's break the chain, people.
Yeah, that takes very good training for your staff and a certain type of person to be able to handle how to navigate that.
And a lot of our employees and volunteers unfortunately have a history of prior abuse, and so that's what gravitates them towards the work, and so they understand of what that survivor is going through, and they try to put themselves in their shoes of what would I have wanted to hear when I was going through it that would have made a difference. And that's kind of that driving force of what, as a human being, like what would I have needed to hear. And some of those first statements are, I believe you, I'm here to support you, let's figure this out together. Because that's really important, that they
may have never heard that.
They may have never heard that they've probably been told, oh, you're crazy. Right. We don't know what you're talking about. Like,
or just leave.
You just leave. And there's no bad intentions when somebody says, oh, I don't know why you just don't leave. They just don't understand all the other dynamics that are going on and what those barriers may be. If you're the sole breadwinner, what am I going to do?
Right. Yeah, I'm sure a majority of that is,
things like that of like, how do I navigate all this stuff? I'm pretty much starting over.
Right.
And I've been isolated from my friends and family, so I don't have the support. And so what does that really look like? And so it's really scary to make that first step. And so again, that's so important of like how we as a community and how us as advocates, how we respond when someone does disclose. Because that is the most crucial.
That's that first touch.
It's like, it's like you can't undo a bad first impression.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much what that is that we can't undo that damage, but we can start from day one and figure out like how to help you navigate the trauma you've experienced, help you figure out like what does that healing journey look like, because it's not linear and it's not time stamped of like, oh, it happened 4 years ago, you should be over it by now. That's not how trauma and abuse works. And so just really recognizing of that's a long journey. It's a marathon. It's not a race. It's not a sprint.
Right.
And just holding that space for somebody else is just so incredibly important.
Well, I feel comfortable just talking to you.
I mean,
first impression was
there.
Great.
You go. Absolutely.
But where do people go in order to get into contact with you? Or, if somebody knows somebody, making that, bridging the gap, how do we get in touch with you?
So we have a couple of phone numbers. So our public office is 615-896-7377. We have our domestic crisis line that's available 24/7, which is 615-896-2012. Then we also have our sexual assault crisis line, which is 615-494-9262. You can Google us, find us online. If you type in domestic violence, our agency hits right at the top of the list to find us. Our website is www.dbsacenter.org. All of our services are listed. You can reach out, send emails to us as well. But we really want to make sure that people know that we are a resource that they can reach out to day or night. Anytime that crisis line rings, somebody answers.
Absolutely.
And that's so important when you're ready, when you've made that first step, like that first line of defense is to answer that phone and okay, let's help you unpack everything that's going on. And unfortunately, crises don't happen during our normal business hours.
Right.
And so we are 24/7. We also get referrals from the national hotlines for domestic violence and through RAIN as well. So we are connected with all the national resources as well. We also are a member of the Tennessee Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. So sometimes we get referrals to their office as well. But, we really just want to make sure that people know that we're here and that we're here to help.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic.
Well, I appreciate you sitting down and sharing that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah.
So if you or anyone you know are in crisis or need anything, please reach out. There's somebody on the other end of that line to help you. So we really, really appreciate it, Eric.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Ericka.
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 All right.
Thank you so much.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.